Hi, Shikin.
Hello. Hi,
Okay, this is
Atika.
our last of our three-part series on Japan. You ready?
Yes.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to part three, the final part of our destination sharing series. Let's talk about Japan.
Mhm.
So hope everyone's
Yeah,
well.
how's everyone well? Everyone well, I hope, because it's such cool weather nowadays. Take care of
Uh,
yourself. I'm sure you all warm up for phase two and the very exciting general elections.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say that
Right?
even though it's cold outside, it's actually quite hot and sizzling over on social media. Like so many exciting things that's going on. I think we're
Yes.
all pretty much entertained by that as well. Yeah. So
Yes.
Shikin, in our first session we shared about what Japan is like over the four seasons and how each experiences over the different seasons have been eye opening for us. For yourself as independent travelers and for me and my family as family travelers. And then last week we shared about popular Japanese destinations where first time travelers can probably consider going to, and also for
Mhm.
returning visitors. Like where are some of the common places? What are some of the common must see things that you should do in Japan? Theme parks that everybody goes to apparently. Yeah, and stuff like that. And then we also last week created a Google Map and we shared some of our favorite spots that hopefully families and independent travelers can use them and it'll be useful for their trip planning lah.
Yeah.
So what is our agenda for today?
Yes, let's do this. Okay, thanks, Atika. Actually, after you say all that, I get very excited all over again, because we have come quite a long way. We really just started, from a very innocent catch up chit chat session, and we were talking about
Over
how
Hari
we miss,
Raya.
yes, Japan food, what fun we had recently with our families, and like also how much there is more to see, and how much we miss traveling because we're all grounded right now, right? Yeah, so it's very exciting, and I am very happy and very thrilled now to see that for this round we are going to broaden the conversation. We are going to showcase more of the unheard of. I would say totally unheard. I'm sure many of you are Japan aficionados out there, and you would probably have heard or have already been to these places in Japan already. But yeah, it's really like our pleasure to come, unpack these destinations with you uh, on this very nice, cool afternoon. And we're going to do it by travel or trip themes to make it a little bit more exciting. And I mean, the reason why we do this is also probably because some of you have actually contributed some of your travel dreams. You were saying, hey, can you all talk about, this particular theme, like hiking? Okay, so we actually really, really took your suggestions, and thank you so much for that. We are going to be exploring one of the themes that you have contributed today. But of course, this is not an a limited. It's not an. It's a non-exhaustive list. Yes, that's what I was going to say. Yeah. So we will welcome more discussion on themes even after this sharing. Okay. So this recurring discussion of where to go, what to experience next. This is something that we are very excited about because all of us are continuously looking for new destinations, whether is it to excite our children, whether to challenge ourselves physically, or like to unplug, just to unplug from the daily stresses, or HBL, I don't know, work
No
from
more, no more.
home,
No more
dealing with,
HBL.
but no more already. You never know, don't say never. Never say never. Yeah, and even those who are like hungry for new experiences, so you associate travel with like seeking knowledge, learning, getting enlightenment. This is something that is really in line with what I wanted to share. Travel writer Pico I know my favorite lah. We're all
Yeah, it's
favorite.
a favorite.
uh,
Yes.
I keep mentioning him, right? I think it's like the third time I'm actually mentioning him. But
Yes.
he says that, whatever they may be, whatever experiences you may seek, it's a very great thing to do because he's encouraging us to use our hobbies or like passions as a tool to travel meaningfully. So it's a way for you to actually see the new world with unique eyes, because only you have that lens. When you follow your hobbies or passions overseas, you get to understand and experience how other people actually, other people who are like you are experiencing their own, experiences with regards to the same hobby. So with that, right, you'll be able to find travel a little bit more meaningful. So this meaningful lens that will allow you to also see and interact in your new environment. But at the same time, we also want to acknowledge that, yes, we're seeking all these new experiences, and great, we're gonna like try to follow our hobbies or passions overseas. It's not easy to plan. So the frugal traveler, this travel writer, another travel writer called Seth Kugel, he also shared that travel is really not easy. On the other hand, it's not easy, and planning for it is even harder. So I think, I hope that, or we hope that through this sharing, we would maybe possibly make it slightly easier for you to put together your own meaningful travel experience for Japan post COVID.
Yeah. Actually, Shiki, now that you mentioned about
Yes, that's
meaningful
what I
travel,
hope for.
right? You said about new travel or meaningful travel. It just occurred to me that with this COVID situation, right? I mean, people have been talking about how travel will change once this COVID is over, lah. Like, and I do wonder whether meaningful travel is
Exactly.
actually going to be one of the big things. I mean, I don't think people want to travel for fun anymore because there's I don't know. You want to? I mean, you kind of like miss traveling. We haven't traveled for like since March, and we missed our June holidays. We couldn't go anywhere in June holidays, and probably December we're not going anywhere either. So your next trip, you want to kind of like make sure that it's something that is like worth waiting for, and yeah, and I think this concept of meaningful travel will be something big. I think um, post COVID, like you probably will be going for like travels for experiences. Like the essential travel, not just the non-essential travel. There's something in my head. I mean, that could be a conversation by itself, right? We could have a talk on like how travel could look like after COVID, right? That could be a next topic.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely,
Uh,
definitely.
yeah, and I also agree with you on how travel planning is not easy. So everybody have their own style and preferences. And for me in particular, like I find it challenging when I'm coordinating a trip with the extended family, which includes my siblings, and their family, and they have children, right? So it's like a very big group of people, because there's a need to like coordinate to take into consideration like each and everyone's interests and preferences. So like this family prefers to do this certain things. So I have a
Mm,
sister who has like three girls and now one boy. So they have like other interests compared to my boys. They will have like other interests that they want to do in the travel.
mm,
Um, so and then for me in particular, when I plan my travels, I do want to include some unique experiences that I will not otherwise have in other country or in Singapore. Like for instance, when I go to Japan, like I need to see Mount Fuji. I mean, to me that is like I go Japan, I don't see Mount Fuji. To me, that's not like a complete trip. Like
mm.
when I went to New Zealand last year, I told my husband I need to go bungee jumping. That's like not bungee. Okay, I didn't do bungee jumping. I did skydiving. I need to go
Skydiving.
skydiving because where else do you do this kind of adventurous stuff, right? I wanted to
Yeah.
go bungee jumping. That was like my original plan for New Zealand like 15 years ago. But I think as I got older, uh, yeah, I totally scrapped that because I think I don't trust the cord lah. At least skydiving, you can trust the
Yeah.
guy behind you, right? Yeah,
I
but that's a
still
different
haven't
story.
signaled.
Yeah, so my
Well
point is that
well done.
if I go to a certain country, I want to do things that's to me in my
Mm,
head is associated with that country lah. Yeah, so like in Japan, back to Japan, I need to go geisha spotting. I read about Memoirs of a Geisha. That's like my book that I read in secondary school. And I eat sushi in Singapore. I must eat the freshest sashimi in Japan. So those are things that like a must do, like non-negotiables for me. Then
mm,
other aspects like covering as many tourist sites as possible. To me, those are not critical. Um, to me, I rather spend more time basking into the culture, seeing the sights, even talking to the locals, than having to rush from place to place lah. So that's why I guess essentially for us, um, we don't usually go for like tour packages because that's really not our kind of travel. And I
mm,
think I think today's sharing is especially about that because I think we'll be talking about different types of experiences that you can plan in Japan. Like what Shikin mentioned earlier, depending on what type of traveler you are you the kind who likes hiking or you like walks, you like road trips? Some people like road trips, but some people prefer
mm.
or they love trains. So I know of someone whose son loves trains so much that like I think if they plan for a trip to Japan, I'm sure trains will be the main feature of their trip lah. Yeah. So, Shikin, what
Yeah.
travel themes are we exploring today? Maybe a bit more details and why are we choosing these themes?
Okay. All right, so today we're looking at 5 themes. Some of them we came up with whenever we think about Japan. So you can guess what these one of these themes would be. And some of them you have contributed, as we said. So we are really very excited to look at the themes of road trips, as you have mentioned, uh, uh, hikes and walks, onsen escapes, extraordinary ones,
Yes.
or ordinary ones. You know, they are also extraordinary in their own way, and of course the island and beaches. And as a bonus, if you want to learn, you want to be a bit more highbrow intellectual experience, you know, as you unplug, you know, you can go the educational route and pick up one or two interesting, insightful experiences along the way. So, yep, when we explore each one, I'm going to touch on why we picked the theme before we showcase where we can go with the theme, and then what stories, if there are any, or if we have photos, we have to share. Uh, just a I wouldn't say a disclaimer, but I also want to say that because this sharing is also about where we ourselves would like to go next. Some of
Yeah.
these photos are actually features, okay, from our research for future trips, to Japan. So they may not be like our own photos up, but of course there'll be credits given, as you will be able to see later. And there'll also be a lot more URLs or links that will help you to, go on and kickstart whatever areas or themes that you want to explore. Okay? Yeah, so
Okay.
we're gonna go on to see the themes. I'm gonna go over to my slides. I think could you help me?
Yep.
Then we would be, yep. Okay, so today we're going to talk about off the beaten path. And we will have these 5 road trips, hikes and walks, onsen escapes, islands and beaches getaway. We will also have the education sites. I wouldn't say sites, but I mean, you could actually concentrate on or focus on making this the key theme for your visit to Japan, you know, along the lines of what Atika shared earlier about meaningful travel. So, whatever it is, all 5 and more, you can have fun in your own way. Okay, so let's go over to the road trips. Okay, so just to highlight, okay, we're going to start off with the first themes. And the reason why we're going to start off with road trip is because we are looking at the map of Japan, right? And we have actually, for part 3, come up with a map of the of Japan, off the beaten path, of all the different places that we can actually go to according to the layers, or according to the themes. So each layer would actually be an insight as to what routes you can take and what spots you can, do as a must visit or must see or do. I would be starting with the road trip, because road trip is about freedom. So every time you think about road trip is like, yay, we're just gonna like get a car, go on the road, hit the road, and you can explore anything and everything. You can get easy access to places that are, difficult to get to with public transport. You can take your own sweet time whenever you want to take a break. It's the total opposite of going for a tour. That feeling is something that is also, I think, very welcome for families of different age groups. If you have children, the road trip could be seen as a family friendly way to explore a place according to your own pace. And you will also have, I'm sure, a very more comfortable way of moving around, because as we have already spoken last week, I mean, Tokyo and places, cities like Tokyo, Osaka, like if you are experiencing city travel for a part of your Japan trip, it can get very overwhelming, and it's totally different if you are, in your own private transport and vehicle. Yeah. So why this? Why road trip? That's the reason why. Okay. I'm probably gonna take a look at 2 areas. That's Hokkaido. For the summer road trip, Hokkaido is very very big, far-flung north of Japan. This area is teeming with, like, uh, a lot of hidden gems, I would say. So it was very difficult for us to actually pinpoint or highlight, narrow down rather, what are the places that we want to feature. So according to the Google Map that Atika will help me to share, um, we would be looking at two routes. I split it up according to Eastern Hokkaido, which I think would be perfect to explore if you are interested in a summer road trip. Yeah, so for summer, you would have Eastern Hokkaido as a playground, uh, easier road conditions because these conditions would be totally different in winter. Yeah, and it's coming from a tropical place like Singapore. It is also a easier way to ease yourself into the Japan road environment as well. So yeah, so these are the possible routes. I won't go through every single pit stop, but as you can see, it really covers the entire the major parts is circle major parts of the eastern side of Hokkaido. It stretches all the way from we start off from the airport. We go all the way to Shiritoko Peninsula on the other side. We cover national parks along the way. And we will also have cities as well, like Asahikawa with its famous Asahiyama Zoo. You will also have the renowned onsen spots along the way in Daisetsuzen. Abashiri, if you want to see the sea and you want seafood. We had like this amazing, until today, very unique and nameless dish made of crab, the crab caught from the area, and eggs. I don't know how they made it, but it was super, super, super delicious. And until today, it's one of the highlights when we visit this coastal town of eastern Hokkaido. Yeah, but and of course the wildlife that we talk about, I don't want to talk about it so much anymore because we actually covered it over the past two sharings. Yep. So if you do want to see the different areas of eastern Hokkaido and national parks along the way with fun activities for kids. You would have for families opportunities to visit dairy farms. You can also eat ice cream. Atika, have you eaten Hokkaido soft serve ice cream before?
Yeah, but not in Hokkaido. Probably in Singapore.
Oh, I must say that Singapore is doing a very good job in bringing all these, sweets and treasures. You see, so in terms of like food, you don't have to worry. I don't think you're missing out a little. Like you're not missing out as
Yeah.
much.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because in Tampines Mall, so every year
mm,
there'll be like a Japan fair. Yeah.
yeah,
So people won't miss out on
and
food.
you have
There are a lot of options.
And now you have a lot more like Japanese supermarkets like Don Donki, Mediya opening up everywhere across Singapore. And I was very surprised to actually see some of the, I thought, I would say, original, like really, really local Hokkaido brands of like dairy ice cream, dairy products, cheese that they bring in, even kelp and seaweed. You definitely see all these natural produce brought over. So I guess in a way, it's more of experiencing the environment as you go through it. And there's a lot of learning opportunities as well because I think it's different eating an ice cream and eating the ice cream that you have made or eaten after you milk a cow. Like totally different, I suppose. Yeah, so I think this is something that you can also explore in the eastern Hokkaido side. So that's for eastern Hokkaido. We have the western side. These two routes can actually be covered if you have more than 10 days. So if you don't, I would suggest breaking up the routes because breaking up the routes into two, either western or eastern Hokkaido, because of the distances that you travel for each side, and you don't want to tire yourself out too much. The other option is to do a fly drive option where you can customize according to the place of entry. So if you're going to like Sapporo and you want to go to eastern Hokkaido but you also want to see western Hokkaido, what you can do is actually you don't rent a car and drive the whole way. You can fly into one of the airports. I didn't bookmark the airport here. I would add it on after the sharing. but you can fly into either Momambetsu, any of the eastern airports. Asahikawa has one airport. You also have Kushiro Airport and the Momambetsu Airport for the far east, where you want to see the Shiretoko Park. So I think you can do that to possibly like save time. Okay, so Western Hokkaido is really about seeing, it's a more popular route. And I think it's also possible to do this in autumn, winter. I think autumn is still okay to drive. Winter, it depends. But otherwise, these cities are actually well connected by public transport as well. The only part that's different is probably the only part that's slightly harder to get to is the part Shakotan Peninsula I in the route is stop number I, and this part you probably have to take, get a car, you drive out, and then you get to see, yeah, you get to see the cape. It's very reminiscent of South Africa. I think if you have been to that part of the world where you have very dramatic coastlines. But I'm talking about summer, right? So if it's summer, you also have a different pool or attraction. Like that area, if you want to eat like the freshest sea urchins in Japan, you will be able to find, because there's this group of sea urchin farmers that run this very very famous restaurant there, and you can like experience the two great sea urchin flavors or types. Yeah, we haven't personally been able to see that, or I mean to experience, to try that. So we hope to be able to the next time round. Yep. But that would be what I would like to say for Hokkaido road trip. If we go back to the slides, we'll be able to see the highlights that I've mentioned earlier. Some of these photos, I think I'd just like to highlight the photo at the top, because the rest I think is more or less explanatory. There's a lot of sites and uh, um, pit stops to do with nature, but the top most, where you see the group of people in a giant net, that's where you have the Cloud Terrace or the Unkai Terrace in Tomamu, which is somewhere in the southern central part of Hokkaido. And you will actually see this as a very good way to have one place to go to where you can experience skiing, indoor swimming, because there's a club med near the area in the same valley where there's a lot of resorts where I believe are very very popular with families. And then you will also have the scenery that you can do if you want to say that you hike a little bit. And if you hike a little bit, you can, because at the top there's like little trails with all these little like pit stops for you to take photos. And number one, and then the last bit is that it's very Instagram friendly lah. Okay, you just have to be okay with queuing for at least half an hour to 1 hour to get to this net. I remember we queued very very long, and then we had all these people making having a lot of interesting poses. So yeah, that's something you can do over there. Yeah, but the rest I've mentioned before, the fireworks, so we have talked about it. So those are the route highlights for Hokkaido. Okay, let's move on, okay, to another area, okay, in Japan that's less talked about, less explored, or less popular with, I don't know, the travelers that I've talked to. They always go to Japan, but I've not quite heard a lot of people talking about Kyushu, which is the southernmost. I won't say okay, the southernmost major island of Japan. Okay, mostly we are visiting like Honshu Island or Hokkaido, right? So Kyushu is the lush and verdant Japanese island. We have the different landscapes that are actually created by years and years, millennia of like volcanic activity. So the soils around there are, kind of it yields a lot of green and pasture based treasures. So you would find the dairy area around dairy in this area amazing as well, like Hokkaido in the Tokachi area. But here you can see, like if you drive this road trip, the route, you'll be able to see that it's actually covering only the central and the western part of the Kyushu. I didn't actually stretch all the way to the south where you have the Kagoshima prefecture. I'm not sure whether if you have traveled to Japan, and you have tried Kobe beef, you will also realize that some of the halal restaurants in Japan would mention another type of beef that's halal, and that's called the Kagoshima beef. They say it rivals the taste of Kobe even better. So Kagoshima is actually here in the south of this area. It's not part of the driving route, but we will actually be able to extend let's say we'll be able to extend this driving road trip to Kagoshima in the south, because the area is also very popular amongst the locals for seaside onsens. Something that we're going to talk about later. Yeah, so you can consider this. Okay, Kyushu road trip is slightly different. It's the Japan that you probably don't associate much with, because you see a lot of greenery, you see a lot of geological formations. The hot springs are there; they're always there all over Japan. But what you see is a little more of the subtropicalness of it. I don't know how to describe it. I went there only once, and it was actually part of a work trip, and I was actually smitten, and it was my first trip to Japan actually, like really, really, even before the Tokyo trip with my husband. So we were stunned actually by how much natural beauty Japan has. So if you are going to Kyushu, these are the possible pit stops. I have put Fukuoka as a starting point because you can either fly in from Singapore to Fukuoka, or you can take the train. The Shinkansen goes all the way to the last pit stop, Hakata Station in Fukuoka. So if you are going to Tokyo, Osaka, Kyoto, Hiroshima, you can go all the way to Hakata, and then you can transfer to whatever modes of transport you want to. In this case here, a rental car. But you have also the possibility of taking those, the railways that Atika was talking about. Atika, you mentioned like interesting railways that families with children would love to go. There are a lot of very quaint steam-based railways that are running in the central part of Kyushu. That is, actually it serves the tourism industry, but I don't think it's not so much of like locals taking it for daily commute, but it's a way to actually experience the scenery, the landscape of central Kyushu, like the area of Kumamoto. If you can see the F over there, Kumamoto, the entire area is very, very large. It has a lot of natural grassland expanses. You see it is a bit reminiscent of, I don't know why, when I saw it, I saw like a green version of Mongolia. I think of that. I don't know why. Yeah, I still remember when I was in a bus and I see, oh, paddy fields, yay. And then after I see, oh, horses, and then suddenly I see a volcano. So there's all this plateau grassland feel to it, which makes a very interesting contrast. So you have all these traditional Japanese, houses and buildings, and then you see that. So yeah, I think that's what Kyushu is interesting. Why Kyushu is interesting for me, and I think it's worth a visit. So if we go back to the slides, and then we will be able to see the road trip route highlights that we have. Some of it is actually these are some of it actually some the things that I experienced, like for example, visiting Aso. Mount Aso is very interesting. They create the crater or the caldera is actually one of the largest in the world. In fact, I think if I'm not mistaken, if you take into account the original rim of the crater, it's bigger than Singapore. I think the circumference, the diameter. So what you will see actually here in Aso is a first-hand peek at geological activity. So the volcanic activity in Aso is quite awesome. Awesome Aso. It's very smelly as well because the sulfur is like can die one. But you will be able to get used to it after a while. And what is interesting is that the caldera itself, I don't have a picture here because when we went, it was very foggy. But on a good day, the caldera is actually turquoise in color. So it's like a blue lake. It's not like the Ijen Lake in Indonesia. There is a crater, the Ijen crater in Banyuwangi area, very close
Yeah, yeah,
to
yeah. The
Bromo.
turquoise color water, Mount
Yes,
Eden. Yeah, I've
correct.
been there. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's similar to that, but it's very big. It's very, very big, and you can go very up close to it. Recently you have the 2016 earthquake though, so I'm not sure. I went before that, so I'm not sure whether the area has been compromised. Whether you have to go further a little bit to see, but the area around Aso is perfectly awesome to drive through simply because of the landscape that I was mentioning about the wide expanses, the greenery, and then the grasslands. So, and the other thing about Aso is that you can do interesting things. We actually did river spring. We visited rivers and springs to check out the water. We also had the opportunity to learn how to make our own soba noodles. So you see that bowl over there, that I claim that bowl as mine, literally mine, because I made it. So how many of you can actually say that you have made your own soba? So I did with the help of two aunties. Two aunties, I remember. Yeah, but it's a very interesting experience actually, because we also have children and families making the sobas with us. Then we can choose whether you want to have it hot or cold, and then they will cook it for you. And that simple bowl is enough to warm your day, because after that you're eating and then you look out and then you see the entire environment being so nice and green. Yep. So that was the highlight for road trips. Of course, there's also interesting, areas to explore. There's also a lunar observatory in the area of Minami Aso, which is the south of Aso. You also have a lot of hot springs. There's onsen towns, which I'm going to talk about later, the Kurokawa Onsen. Uh, and maybe I'll just shift over to that. I'll show you how peaceful and how zen-like it will feel to be sitting in that room with a private onsen bath. Disclaimer: this room is actually this is a room in the inn called Gosho Gekujo, which is one of the top 10 inns in ryokans rather in the Kyushu area. And you can see that entire space there, and the cold, nice evening, you you would you will not forget lah. You will definitely not forget that visit that you will make to this particular area for the onsen. So after you climb, after you take get horse riding, there's horse riding possible around the area. You can experience this luxury or comfort. Okay, so that would be over here. Okay, let's go on perhaps to the next part. Okay, we're going on. We're going on to the second theme over here, walks and hikes. So why, after I talk about road trip, right? So we are going to zoom in. Maybe we want something a little bit more physical, maybe a bit more, you want to be closer to nature. So hiking is one way to do it, because Japan has very rich biodiversity. You have landscapes with a lot of flora, fauna, a lot of animals and plants. In fact, a lot of times when you actually hire a guide to walk with you, for some of these routes, we realize that they are very, very expert in pointing out what's this plant for, what's that, particular flower, and what's the meaning behind this particular route that we are taking, how will it look according to seasons, what do I like to do best. I remember my guide was talking about how he was being chased by a bear. Yeah, and we were talking about how, yeah, because we have to carry like those kind of bear bells to
Oh,
yeah, to make
so
sure that the
interesting.
bears, yeah,
Don't go after you.
kind of like, yes, exactly. And then he carries a bear spray as well. So I remember when we went step into the bushes, we started with that, like this bushy area of one hike, and then he was like, okay, have you all got your bear spray, bear bells? I'm like, you're freaking me out, I just want to turn back and go back. So we were very impressed by him actually. So yeah, if you do want to have interaction with a local, hiking is actually possible, as long as you're able to take deep breaths and your fitness level is great. You can learn a lot along the way if you do have someone with you. But if not, just walking, examining, taking in the surroundings is really like unplugging. And I have also experienced together with husband, right? We have actually experienced trails where we saw like, school children climbing, women, men in business suits, women in like court shoes climbing, 70-year-olds, uncles and aunties, they are climbing. And then we're like, no, we cannot lose out, there's no excuse. So we walked. Yeah, and that was how like all these random walks turned out to be very meaningful, because you do learn a lot of things along the way as well. Like, how do Japanese hikers actually get equipped, or even get how do they get outfitted for the walks? So you see all these 70 plus year old aunties with very cool walking sticks, and even if, like, let's say for example, if let's say you want to put Fuji, climbing Mount Fuji as one of your travel checklist. You climb Mount Fuji. Okay, great. You know what it entails? I mean, you can actually have souvenirs like walking sticks that are engraved with the different stations that you stop to along the trail. So it does speak for, number one, a very meaningful, a physical challenge, but at the same time, it gives you that feeling of like, hey, this is something really uniquely Japan. Because where else can you pick up a walking stick with all of Japan's pit stops emblazoned on it for posterity. Yeah. So why we hike? That's why we hike. And okay, I'm not going to talk so much about each of these trails, because they really they merit their own exploration. We have the Kumano Kodo Trail in Wakayama. We featured this because of the proximity to Osaka and Kyoto. Some of these Kumano Kodo is actually a trail. It's an ancient pilgrimage trail. So we have the Japanese being able to take on the 5 to 6 stages of this trail or hike, which traverses the key mountains range. So it's very, very remote, but at the same time, not too far away from the hustle and bustle of the popular routes. Yeah. Is it challenging? You can do the 5 to 6 day hikes. You can do it in 3 day 2 nights. You can stop at inns along the way. There are inns where you can just overnight, and then most of these are actually run by local families over the centuries. But this area is actually a very holy Buddhist area as well. For the monks, they actually do their mountain pilgrimages there to the mountain shrines at the top of the key mountains. We don't have to do that, but we will be able to see some particular landscape along the way. Like if you walk from this side over here, I'm not sure you can see my cursor, but we probably start somewhere where my cursor is, and then we can travel a little bit, and then you get to see some amazing like giant trees as landscapes. Then somewhere along the way, if you want to continue, you'll probably see like the giant torii gate above there. And then at the end on the right side, you come out from the other side, you'll be able to see like the Naisha Tashi Shrine. I hope I pronounced it correctly. Um, Wait, hang on. Yes. So what you actually see is you can do the entire trail, or you can like bites. You can take bites of the portions of the trail. So if you like to see the picture on the bottom, the landscape at the bottom, you can come in from the other side, the eastern side, and then you will also have the I think if you can, I will be talking about beaches and islands later, but there's like one great beach close to the endpoint of that Kumano Kodo Trail. Okay, so that's the Wakayama Kumano Kodo Trail. I always mispronounce it every time I talk because it's Kumano Kodo and Komodo. Too close. Okay, so yeah, so for more information, you can go and check out those links over there. The other ones, okay, there are many, 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 many. I cannot showcase all of them or go into detail, but if you like more pleasant, not natural scenery, but more of like villages scenery, I think Nakasendo Trail in the Kiso Valley is a worth try because it's actually the ancient route. Nakasendo means, I think, the middle route between uh, Kyoto and Tokyo. Was used to be an ancient postal town route you can walk all the way from Kyoto to Tokyo, and then you encounter like over 60 plus towns. They call it postal towns or villages along the way. It's also a route that used to be popular with the nobilities, the noble families, and even the imperial family, because they need to traverse the area, right, to get to the shogun, or rather the political center of Japan, from the imperial center of Kyoto and Nara. So we have the Kiso Valley here. You don't have to do the entire trail, because I think not the trail is not all complete now. I think the parts of it, they're already like fallen into disrepair. But the Nakasendo Trail route between these two places, Magome and Sumago, if you can see the top picture over here, lots of green. I think it's very hard for you to see. I'm so sorry about that. But you will be able to see the villages, very pretty villages. And it's about an 8 kilometer stretch that you can do in 2 to 3 hours. It's paved. So I think the children can also follow. And you can consider taking, a chance to ask them to do like drawing, or sketching, or even like bird watching or animal watching along the way. So that's Nakasendo Trail in the Kiso Valley for you. If you want to climb Mount Fuji, you will actually be able to do so through the Beginner's Trail, Yoshida Trail. If you want to, you will probably need to spare 2 days if it's confirmed, a good day, a good weather. You check the weather forecast, of course. So that's something that you need to do. What some of the key considerations we'll be sharing later on uh, in the follow up to the sharing. But yeah, the Yoshida Trail is one possible route to explore, or you want to take, go to the peak of Mount Fuji. Then we will also have Mount Haku. Why did I mention Mount Fuji, Mount Haku, and Mount Tateyama? Because these three are actually Japan's three sacred peaks. We have the Mount Fuji as the first peak, and then Mount Haku, which is somewhere close to central Japan, and Mount Tateyama. They're very close to one another. They are very close to each other. You can do these two trails. Not that if you don't want to climb to the peaks, fine. The area around there is also very nice to walk, as you can see, especially the Tateyama Kurobe Alpine route. It's a famous route because if you go there, if you go there by bus, I believe that you'll be able to see those long, thick, very tall walls of snow, even in May, I think. Yeah, so that's around the time when you can actually go up and follow this route. So parts of the route, especially close to the top, you will have all these like boardwalks for the families to walk, and in the valleys, and of course you can continue to do the more strenuous hike to go to the peak of Mount Tateyama. So that's something you can explore here. Okay, so that's hikes for you. And after you hike, also tired, let's go to the onsens. Okay, so this third tip, the onsens. Why onsen? Okay, onsen is Japan. If you say Japan, you say onsen. That's all. Very simple. We will have Japan's bathing culture with locals. Oh, hang on, we have a question here.
It's not
How
a
long did
question.
you travel up Mount
It's
Fuji?
a fact about climbing up Mount Fuji. So I
Yes,
googled
it's
because
right
I'm
there.
curious, right?
Ah,
5 to 7 hours to
yes,
climb, and 3 to 5 hours
that's
to descend. So I think it's doable for an average adult. But I think if families
right.
um probably buffer in 2 or 3 times the the length needed.
No, I would advise you not to bring your young, very, very young children here, because there are two things actually. You could actually get halfway up, but there will be the ski slopes to consider, as well as the altitude. So climbing all the way up to the peak, even though it's 5 to 7 hours, it's actually quite strenuous in the second half. Why? If you go to that link that I shared, right, you'll be able to see like the step by step, like, oh, where did it, how did it go, after like the first station, second station. Yeah. So
Yeah.
most people, if you climb in the morning, you actually overnight there in the mountain huts, and a lot of times you'll probably be overnighting with very seasoned climbers. But having said that, there are really inns and tea houses along the way. So if you are like a active family, you really love outdoors, this is one possible way to try. And I have seen documentaries where they have You must come prepared, of course, but we have Japanese medics that are trained to be on Fuji. So they will really run up and then, like, give you oxygen assistance if you need to. But do bring your own oxygen, cans, because we do carry this when we go for high altitude walks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Actually,
yeah,
I do have a question for you for the trails that you're talking about, right? So the few trails that you
yeah.
mentioned, are they accessible by trains and all that, or do you need to usually drive to get to the trails? Yeah.
Actually, for the trails, most of them, like Fuji Yoshida Trail, is definitely accessible to
Mm.
the public. Nakasendo Trail is you can do it as a day trip from Kyoto, actually. So
Ah,
you have
okay.
the Shinkansen, then a bus that will bring you to the town, and then you start walking from the town. So that's
Okay.
fine. And it very well signposted, very well signposted in English as well. So you don't have to worry, about not understanding the signages and all. And Mount Haku is also there are buses that run, especially during the climbing season in May all the way to like late October.
Mm.
You would have, yeah, the area very well serviced by public transport, but a lot of people actually drive because there's like campsites there as well. So you can actually like climb, then you sleep there. A lot of sleeping in cars and like camper vans or your own vehicles. So it's possible. And Tateyama Kurube Alpine Route is getting more and more popular. So you can actually literally experience the entire route by bus and never get off if you want to. Of course, you still need to get off. But
Eventually, yes.
yes, eventually you still need to get off. But yeah, if you don't walk, yeah, you can literally. It's a bit more touristy. But climbing
Okay.
up to the peak of the mountain is a different thing, lah. Yeah. Okay,
All
so
right.
let's go back to the onsens part. Yeah, so I mentioned already, we talk about onsens. What I wanted to say is that there's really so many onsens. You sure you want to miss going to an onsen? Okay, but having said that, it's very daunting also because Japan's bathing culture requires you to be totally without clothes, in your birthday suit when you enter the bar. So this is the first I suppose the first point of trepidation for international visitors because you're like, what, really? No. Yeah. So you I must say this for someone who has actually tried it. uh you get over it after a while and you're like, whatever, I'm just gonna hit the I'm just gonna go straight to the water. Yeah, actually you don't go straight to the water, you just go straight to the baby area, and then you realize that everybody else is doing the same. So if you're worried about that, I must say to you, I would say that it's something unique to experience. If it's to encourage you, it's really something unique to experience in Japan, because of all the atmospheric onsens, all the effort that the Japanese put into it. The bathing culture, bathing itself is such a ritual. It's made a ritual, the cleansing ritual itself. I mean, minus the spirituality part of it, it's just a way of keeping clean, and they really, really, um, you know, really perfected the art of keeping clean in this sense. So you can actually enter the onsens. If you're too worried, there's a lot of onsen ryokans for you to just unwind with your family in the comfort of your room. I'll be showing you a couple of onsens here. Not sure you can see me at the bottom. This is the Kinosaki Onsen town. For the top, we actually have a town that's very close to Kyoto, about maybe 3 hours by express train. And the town is made up of many ryokans that uh, will be servicing the travelers to stop over in the town. There are 7 public baths there, and they're all different themed. There's even a onsen a bathhouse that looks like a kabuki theater, like it has caves inside. And then there's one that's by the sea, by the river, so you get like very strange Italian marble columns and Turkish hammam baths inside, and then you can step out and then there's like rock pools and waterfalls, and you face the river which opens up to the sea. And then there's also the very closed up bar. So the one I thought about was the one at the bottom. That's my favorite actually. I was very happy after I come off from there. I even visited it 3 times. Even before I caught my train, I went in again, like the last half an hour. Yeah, and we realized that it's also a place where the locals, there are a lot of travelers there, but there were locals too. The locals go there to interact with one another. So onsens are actually very social spaces as well. Some go there to chit chat with their friends, catch up with their business partners. Oh, but I will never do that. I cannot imagine. But yeah, or just melt into the steamy surrounding, like really like steamy, literally with steam. Yeah. So you can experience that. I've shown you the good food earlier in the previous sharing. You have the good food that always accompanies all these chillaxing experiences. The reason why I also bring in this other town called Ginzan Onsen in Yamagata province. I'm not sure you can see the picture in the middle over there. It's actually a very, very pretty mountain onsen town. It's the inspiration for the Studio Ghibli film Spirited Away. Some of Miyazaki's settings actually remind you on some of the famous onsens around the country. So Ginsan Onsen is one place to go because of all the very pretty chalet-like surroundings. But if you are a family and then you want to experience fun, super great fun in an onsen, there's an onsen theme park somewhere close to Tokyo in Odaiba. I think Odaiba is a very popular spot with families in general. But the Oedo Onsen Monogatari, that onsen actually is a very nice onsen that can allow your children to experience the bathing culture and all the perks that comes with it. There's spas for the adults, but there's also like mini yukatas and food baths for the kids, and they can just have their ice cream or their desserts and snacks and funny drinks, milk. We somehow always drink milk, coffee milk, chocolate milk, or normal milk after we come out from onsen. It's like these vending machines are out there just waiting for you to press them. So you can experience the whole shebang in the Oedo onsen in Odaiba, Tokyo. So yeah, this is what onsens can bring you. But if you don't want to go to the towns, you want to just visit for the places, there are onsens with views from the Fuji view. That's actually a very popular onsen area. Most of the like number one ryokans actually feature around Hakone and Fuji, Kawaguchiko.
Yeah, I went to one in
So
Hakone, or onsen in
yes,
Hakone.
it's
I
very,
was
very
with
nice.
the hotel. Yeah,
And
yeah,
do you
but
get to see like views of the mountains or something?
yeah,
Yeah,
of the mountains. Yeah, we did,
we managed to
and
see Fuji here.
yeah, you were very shocked about the bathing culture. So, and being Singaporeans, we actually wore our towel all the way to the side of the onsen, which was
Ah,
not what everybody was doing. So we were doing something different. But yeah, it
right,
was our first
right.
experience. So, but it was a nice experience. I think we would. I think I don't regret going for the experience. Like you
Yeah.
go to
We have
Japan, you must try an onsen, right?
yes. You have the like gender separated baths, right? So in
Yeah, yeah.
the
Mine was gender
areas
separated. Yeah.
where they
Mm.
strip and then they have the women, they also children as well. And then we saw the mother teaching like the child how to the girl, the daughter, how to bathe or rinse yourself before you get in. I mean, okay, I wasn't really like observing so long because it's not nice. It's actually rude to stare and inside. Yeah, but you kind of notice all these little activities going on the side. Yeah, and one thing for me, I wear glasses most of the time, but onset I'll take it off, so I'll be like partially blind. That helps a lot. So you don't see anything, and then you imagine that other people don't see you as well. Yeah, so you get to see that. But I think one reason why I fell in love with the onsen culture is beyond the stripping part. You kind of have the views part. You have the atmosphere of being one with the landscape. So like the Kusharo, Lake Kusharo and Hokkaido, Niseko, they have onsens that are open air. We call them rotenburos. Onsen open air baths. In nature, they are rotenburos. The riverside Takaragawa Onsen in the Gunma Prefecture, even Kurokawa as well earlier. They're actually in very nice exotic surroundings, uh, very beautiful, peaceful surroundings in nature. So I remember just sitting inside a pool and then we watched the snow just falling because it was snowing quite heavily. And it was very peaceful. It was very, very, there was nothing in my mind. I was sitting there for like 15 minutes just alone in the pool. There was nobody with me. And you just feel at one with nature in that sense. So I think that was something that made me that was the moment where I feel like, okay, I think I really like doing onsens. Yeah, so that's onsen for you. We do have the people who don't want to be in that kind of water, but other kinds of water, like the normal swimming water. But we don't really see people talking about beach or island holidays whenever we talk about Japan. But actually, Japan is made up of islands, you know. So if we take that into account, why not, search for all these like hidden gems around? So I did my research here because yes, I'm one of those people who don't look for beaches in general because I go to the beach just to eat and chill, but not to swim. But we have the islands of Japan that are very accessible. Some of them you can come, fly in from Singapore, like Okinawa, I believe. Atika, you can have some say in that. You haven't been there, but I think you have heard about how Okinawa holiday can be like, right? And then there's also the Tokyo Islands of Tokyo, which are very interesting and unique in their own rights. The beaches, if you just want to stick to the mainland, you have beaches with add-on activities. Like if you see this picture of this beach called Shimao Beach in Toyama Bay, Toyama Bay, let me just move on, yeah. Okay, you can actually see some of the beaches like Shimao Beach in Toyama Bay, which has those bioluminescence. They're actually squid. So in spring, between March to June, you have all these like blue lighting up the entire shoreline because the squid will get brushed along. They're washed up on shore, and then the fishermen will actually pick them up. Or you can go out to sea and then pick up all this and harvest the squid. So you've got all these other activities that will be quite exciting for you if you go to a beach destination. Yep. So if you want to stick to Tokyo, you have the 11 islands. I highlighted a couple over here. We do have the different activities there. You can, visit the www.tokyoislands.com link for you to explore how to get to these islands and what you can do there. There's so many. I just highlighted one island because I watched this bento movie. It's a Japanese movie about a mom who was making bento to communicate with her teenage daughter. So the mom lives in an island called Hachijojima, which is actually part of the Tokyo area prefecture, I think. And you need to, but it's very, very far away. You need to take a ferry that's close to 14 hours, I think. Yeah. So it's a very interesting reality here that I didn't realize that, the islands of Tokyo, and then that's when we went to look at the different areas. But I think Okinawa is probably the first that comes to mind when you talk about that first comes to our mind when we talk about islands and Japan holidays.
Yeah, and
Atika,
it's
do
been
you
quite popular, right? With a few of my friends have been going to Okinawa because there's a direct flight now
have
from Singapore to Okinawa. I mean, before COVID, there was a direct flight. I don't know about after COVID. Jetstar, and it's a budget airline, so it's quite affordable. So I know my friends who've been there. They talk about the aquarium. So
yeah.
that's famous in Okinawa. But of course, talking about beach and islands, if you go during like year end, whereby it's winter, then you might not be able to enjoy the beach as much lah. So it also depends on when you go
Mm.
to Japan, which part of the year. Yeah.
That's true. That's true. So we do have these considerations when you go to experience the beaches or swimming, etc. We actually need to look at the summer months.
Yeah.
The
Ideally lah. Yeah.
most important, ideally.
Yeah. But so on
If
on,
not,
on our blog, I've put up a post from Michelle, who's in the photo. So she's shared on her experience in Okinawa. I've also had another post from another family who did the Tokyo, Kyoto, Osaka route. So those are two latest blog posts. So I must say, Shikin, actually because of this series, right? I've been updating my blog and I've been like looking at
that's
my
good.
photos and thinking of what is the next Japan article that I want to write about because I haven't even written about my own Japan trip. So yeah, so thanks to this
Ah,
series, some work has been done in that aspect.
yeah, I think that's the beauty of doing this. That's the one great thing about doing this sharing. It forces you to really like look at, like, for me actually I did the entire week of research of places that I would really really want to go after this.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And
it's
you have enough
it's
material to repurpose into a blog post, so please go ahead and do it.
that would be in the works. We hope to follow up after the sharing with these areas that we talked about because there's really so much to talk about, and I know like I'm in danger of always like going on and on about just one thing. So I would really hope that with this very brief sharing of all the different space of all the different places according to the themes, you'll be excited to do your own research and yeah,
Yeah.
and chit chat with us about that. Yeah.
Actually,
Okay, so let's go
I mean,
back
yeah,
to
I'm excited to hear
yeah,
about the
the
last
Okinawa
one.
part, right?
Okay, I
You
think
haven't
okay
you
now
haven't
I'm
talked about
done.
the Okinawa about the this one?
I
Yeah, the
also found an
aquarium.
article from Straits Times on like 10 holiday highlights, which I've posted on my Family Shippers page. So I think those are easy to read. So there's a bio park. It's like a nature park playground made up of all natural resources. I think it's my friend said it's amazing. She spent like hours there with her kids. So that's something that you can look out for. But like I say, Okinawa was an option because of the accessibility to Singapore and also because of the budget flight to
Yeah.
Singapore from Singapore as well. So those are the reasons why some families choose that, especially those who have been to Tokyo, who have been to Osaka or Kyoto. So Okinawa was the
Mm,
next option. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So I wanted to also say that yeah, actually I'm interested about the next theme, which is on the educational, right? Because actually I've
Yay.
told you before that I wanted to visit Hiroshima and Nagasaki only because we
Uh-huh.
learn it in history. But yeah, so I want to hear this part. Please share.
Right, right. Okay. So why learn when we go to Japan? I think like what Atika has said, like there's nowhere else on earth that you can actually go to places
Which has
such
been
as the
bombed. Sorry. Okay, continue.
yes, atomic bombs by atomic bomb. Yeah,
Yeah.
and we've heard about Little Man, Fat Boy, and we
Yeah.
have heard about it from Japanese our textbooks. But just being there in the memorial museums, learning about a very key event in world history, and also I guess if you are a geography enthusiast, learning firsthand the effects of geological occurrence like earthquakes, phenomenons, you will get a deeper sense of appreciation, and you will develop empathy, I believe, um, for the people who have experienced this, and also for it's a reflection of how you also view life and humanity in general, because a lot of things go through your mind when you see the exhibitions, when you go through um, the materials and the well, some of it I must say is very distressing, especially if you visited like Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the atomic uh, bomb or peace, I would call it the Peace Memorial Museum for the first time. I believe I remember crying at the end of Nagasaki. I visited Nagasaki first, but there's also that sense of hope, that sense of looking to the future. We talk about how like the debate about whether we should have nuclear weapons existing on Earth or not, and how we use them. It's yeah, it's really rich food for thought. It can provide like an avenue for discussion, or even a debate. Why I say debate, because if you can see at the bottom of the picture over here, right, at the bottom of the collage, these are actually the peace cranes, the origami cranes that were created by visitors and children. So you can string them up and then you can put it up around the grounds of the memorial park, and they represent like the symbols or the hopes and messages of peace that they hope that such an event will never happen again. In Hiroshima, if you go to like the Hypo Center, where then you will see the dome, you will see the area where the bomb first strikes. You also see the river, which will correspond to the pictures in the museum that tells you about what the people experienced there at that point of time, the victims, and also what was the response of the Japanese government, to help the people who were affected by this tragedy. So I think that's the part where there's a debate that goes on, because of course this is a museum that is about peace, and it is by the set up by the Japanese government and also with the United Nations. But you will also have the other avenues or opportunities to bring in other possible points of views for discussion. Like we don't talk about the causes or reasons why Nagasaki or Hiroshima get bombed. The Japanese point of view of or the version of why it happens, as well as other points of views of why the sites were chosen and so on and so forth, and why why this happened. So as bystander immersed in this ongoing discussion, you'll find that, oh, some thoughts will come into your mind, like why did they bomb, why this group of people, military strategy, strategic military strategic thinking aside, um what about the cost to human lives? How do we quantify it? So I think that's the part where you get kind of like pulled into the whole thing lah. Yeah. So that in itself is a draw. It's very enlightening, very insightful experience. Same goes for the disaster, the earthquake memorial museum in Kobe. I went to one that is in Kyushu. I didn't personally go to the Kobe Museum, but you would actually be able to experience like seismic shocks, what to do in the event of earthquake, and you get to see how the country actually works with how to manage these natural disasters lah. Yep. So I think that's what we are able to gain when we go for these educational visits or experiences. The last one I wanted to talk about, actually the one I'm most nervous to talk about, but I really would like to bring it up, is actually to talk about Japanese landscapes, through the one thing that we usually associate with Japan, which is gardens, temple gardens, temples,
Zen
gardens,
gardens.
just plain gardens, Zen gardens, Buddhist gardens. What's the landscape theory behind them? We actually explored the gardens of Japan. There are three famous gardens of Japan. So I will just move on to that. I will show you like what are the yes, where am I? Yes, the three famous gardens of Japan. So we talk about Kanazawa, Keirokuin, Korakuen, and Kairokuen. Yes. So the Keirokuin garden in Kanazawa is the garden that is considered the perfect garden because it fulfills the six, attributes of garden. You asked me the six, I really can't remember right now. But one of it is the six attributes of space, spaciousness, the exclusivity, how abundant the how what abundance of what the flowers, the species of plants, the views and the expenses. So the Kanazawa Garden, the Kenrokuen actually fulfills this, and then we're like thinking, wow, so many ticks. And really, is it perfect? So we went there and we are like, wow, actually this is amazing. I have like an entire slideshow worth of like our experience in Kanazawa's Kenrokuen. We actually went there as a pit stop to Shirakawa Go, which is a traditional village, traditional Japanese village with the very cute V-shaped thatched roofs like this. And I think it's up there, but you can't really quite see because I took it from a very high vantage point. But this area over here is the Shirakawa Go traditional village. And we went to Kanazawa's Kenrokuen Garden together with this traditional village. And we thought that these two were very interesting pit stops, very insightful pit stops on their own, because you get to see a rural way of life that's still, enduring over the times, and you get to experience like how traditional. What I did there was I actually bought stuff. So like there were like boxes of dried chilies, peppers that farmers or the locals left by the side of the roads, and you pick it up and then you just pay whatever. It's an honor system, so you pay whatever amount you want to. They have a recommended amount, then you just drop it into a coin box and very happily, walk off with your purchase. And then you have the place come alive during the winter months when you get like winter festivals, the light up in the villages, that makes it a very pretty local scenery. And if you are lucky enough, you can stay overnight as well. Overnight with the locals, and then they'll be able to share with you their traditional ways of life as well, like a daily life, like what's your family like, how's your family been living in this area for the many years and generations. So I think that's a very interesting um, way to experience Japan as well. It's getting more and more popular though. These villages can be combined with the garden visits that I talk about. I talk about only about Kenrokuen, but there's Korakuen in Okayama and Kairokuen, the other two gardens. Why are they famous? Because of the techniques in which they created the landscape in the gardens. So I'm jumping back to the gardens, yeah, where we talk about how they borrowed they had techniques that borrowed scenery to make the gardens bigger. Kenrokuen in Kanazawa is about the sublime attributes of a perfect garden, but Korakuen is the feudal lord's vision of how a perfect garden would be, where you actually see different aspects of what goes into enjoyment and even governance. You have the garden that has Okayama Castle just beside it, but not in it. And you borrow that scenery of the castle to make the garden look uh, majestic and imposing but beautiful. It is an area for you to enjoy if you're part of the noble family or if you're part of the Lord's family, but you also have the people coming in to enjoy sometimes. And then there's orchards, there's aviaries where you have birds being kept. You have the paddy fields as well within a garden. I don't know why, but then I learned that they were to signify, the relationship between the Lord and the land. So we talk about a bit like the philosophy of governing. How much we need to our lives are intertwined with nature in Japan. So we have that as the Okayama Garden, very beautiful. And then you have the last one, Kairokuen Garden. I've not been there, but it's a people's garden where it's a garden created for the people to enjoy. Now, these gardens are actually very close to the major cities. So, like Kanazawa, you can go to Kanazawa from Kyoto. If you're going to the Tateyama Kurobe Alpine Route, you can also you can go and have a pit stop. Very easy, take a bus, from the main train station, and you're there. And Okayama is en route from Kyoto or Osaka rather, to Hiroshima. You can stop by at Okayama, and then there's a express bus that runs there. And then Mito, I believe, is very close to Tokyo, but maybe less than 2 hours. Yeah, it's okay, not so close, I think, from Tokyo, but you can easily access it. Yeah. Yep. So that's what we can do. Okay, if we like to experience a educational themed trip. Okay.
I
So
thought it's
I
so
think I'm.
interesting that the gardens also have like, yeah, have a lot of
Mm,
like I don't know, like thought put into the garden. Like, it's pretty complex, like garden for the people and garden for the governance. I'm like, oh wow, that's I've never thought of gardens that way. I mean, to me, gardens are just gardens, whether they're pretty and not
I
pretty.
hope
But if you
I put it correctly.
if you go deeper and you actually examine their different characteristics or different attributes of the garden, actually
Mhm.
there's a story behind them, right? I thought that's very interesting. Very
Yeah.
geeky but very interesting. Thank you for sharing that.
Thanks. It's a bit
Yeah.
more highbrow. It appeals to more intellectual, like if you like to like spend a time. But if you go with the kids as well, I think just explaining why there's like rice and fruit trees
Yeah.
in a
In the
garden would be
garden,
quite
right?
interesting.
The
Yeah,
sing
and
like the symbol
birds.
behind it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
I remember we also talk about. I remember because we're talking about the educational part of the trip, right? So I remember you shared that history lessons in school now starts from
mhm.
after World War II. So some of the things that we learned
Mm,
previously, probably the kids won't learn during their time lah. So
mm,
it's quite interesting if you
mm.
bring them to certain places and you show them some of the stories. They might not even hear it in school anymore. So I
Yeah,
mean that can complement what they are learning in school as well. Yeah.
exactly.
Okay. I think there's so many things that you have shared which I've already put into my own bucket list for my next
Oh.
Japan trip. Uh, yeah, starting with a road
Am I
trip, I
making it
think.
harder for you?
Probably can't do certain things. Probably can't climb Mount Fuji. That would be a bit out of the question for now. But yeah, others are quite
Mm,
possible. I think the
yeah.
gardens are quite interesting to go to. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe check out like the Shiraka what
Kawago.
Shirakawaga village, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I thought since we've talked about the important question of where to go, the next
Mm,
important question will be how can we put this trip together, lah, which is something that I will have to look at.
yeah.
Any suggestions or any tips?
I think there's a lot of thought that goes into answering that question. So I find it quite difficult to answer it properly, in this short time that we have. But it won't be wrong to start with just choosing the one or two, hobbies or um, thing points interest lah, your hobbies or your interests or passions that you can focus on. Then you mix and match with what you want to experience in Japan. So let's say you want to go geisha spotting, but you also love theater. So you go do kabuki, and then if you are a road tripper, you love to drive, then go ahead and take a road trip. But you can also experience an onsen along the way, and then if you like to hike, you can combine it with like a beach. If during the summer months, you can chill by the beach after that. So make soba along the way if you love to cook. So I think it's a very interesting way of creating your own unique formula for meaningful travel. Yeah, so that's a start. If you are wanting to go further with this, we'll be happy to just take up this discussion of mixing and matching beyond the sharing itself. Yeah, I think that's something that I believe Atika is very excited to share about. Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
so
but
since you
before that, in
what?
case you want to talk about, in case before I let Atika talk about her very exciting piece of news, yeah, in case you do want like further trip planning, discussion, consultation, just visit us at the wandercurator.com. I mean, we'll be very happy to like chit chat with you as well. But Atika will also be mentioning another new platform for you to do, your discussion and questions and sharing. And over to you.
Yeah. So yeah, so we've been talking about what next after this destination sharing session that we've been doing, right? I mean,
Mm,
we've gotten some questions from friends, from our Facebook friends as well on what or how they can plan for their own trip. So we're thinking of
mm,
maybe we could explore a more intimate kind of sharing. And we didn't want this to end here and today. And we know that travel
uh,
planning is not easy. So we are setting up a Facebook group for us to continue some of the conversations that we have on Japan travel. So we're gonna call it
mm,
Let's Talk About Japan for now. We could change it along the way. We are quite flexible
yeah.
people. So we invite you to join the group. We will share more insights on Japan, and I think members can also post questions, share itineraries. I think that'll be the value of the group lah, is to share itineraries. Because some of us have done a Japan trip, and you will have an itinerary that is suitable for another family, right? So I thought that that could be a very good platform for sharing. I think we're
Mm,
also talking about hosting smaller sessions, sharing sessions,
yeah.
and maybe on targeted on certain topics, right, Shikin? Um,
Yeah, that's
and
right.
and I think when we were talking about it recently, we saw that there's this new Facebook room feature, and we thought of using Zoom previously, but since there's this Facebook
Mm,
room feature, we might want to experiment and see whether it's something that we can use for some of these sharing sessions, lah. Yeah.
that's right. Yeah. So I think one of the beauties of this is that because it's a never-ending discussion, it's a great way for us to actually capture all the
Mm,
it points, the gems as well, and even the questions because they're all gems as well. Yeah, and hopefully this community would, post COVID, will be very ready to like, go for uh, their Japan experience. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, if you want to plan your trip, you can always go to the group and check out like certain destination and see what people have talked about this destination. So
That's
hopefully,
right.
like, so we're hoping for this to be more grounds up kind of like community, not just something from Shikin or
Yeah.
for myself. Because I've always told this to my friends and all that, or to even to Shikin. I've told her before that I mean, there's only so much that me and
Mm,
Shikin can do, right? There's only so much travels that we can do in a year. So
yes.
actually, but if all of us kind of like put together all our ideas or all our itineraries, all our discoveries that we've made along the way, I think we have a
Mm,
very good um, resource pool that all of us can tap on, I think. And I think we
mm,
also have some other plans. I think we were talking about running maybe a few workshops such as planning for your trip, your Japan trip 101, or even just generic trip planning 101 kind of
mm,
like course, whereby we can share with you some of the things that we do when we plan our own trips. And at the end
mm,
of it, you can also work with Shikin and maybe you can get a customized trip itinerary. And
Mm.
aside from Japan travel stories, we also
Yeah,
are considering what our next destination could be. Could it be another country? Are we looking at
that's right.
some unique parts of Europe? I know Shikin has been to Eastern Europe, and you've been to a bit more exotic places than me, lah. So there are some places that we can consider to talk about. Um,
Mm.
I still haven't written my blog post about New Zealand. I mean, New Zealand is another big country with many different things and experiences that we can talk about as well. So
Yes.
if you have any suggestions on countries that you want us to probably do a next destination sharing on, do let us know as
Mm.
well. We'll be happy to mull it over first and then like find our photos before we decide whether we go ahead with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Yeah. So
think
we
I think just to round off, right? Just to
yeah
add on to what you just said, like I think that we, as you mentioned earlier, I think that it is great if we can have more people on board as well, like in terms of like contribution. As you mentioned, it's not just about us traveling. I'm very much well aware that there are more well seasoned independent, much more seasoned independent travelers out there, and amongst us, and it'd be really fun to actually hear what your stories are like, and it could be a safe place, but everyone experiences it a different way, right? Yep. So we hope to hear more from you as well.
yeah. So that's our
Yay.
plans for the next few weeks or months. Hopefully, we can
Mm.
do some of these things. Yeah, and actually, we've reached the end of our sharing today, Shikin.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yay. Oh, I'm sad.
yeah. We have a comment from Hannah. Interesting sharing. Oh, so Hannah Mariam is saying that Kyushu sounds like a possible future destination for her.
Mhm.
Yeah, you can check out the map. Shikin has actually mapped out some of the places that you want to go in Kyushu. That's a good
Mhm.
start, I suppose, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be sharing the link with you on Facebook. Once we have finished the sharing, then you can explore it. It's actually a live map, I would say. So sometimes when you can't click, and then it gets offline because we're adding more layers to it. So yeah, just look out for that. But it will be a resource for everyone to access whenever they want to, with regards to Japan trip planning. Mm.
Yep. Okay, so
Okay.
yeah, I think I kind of miss our Sunday sessions and our Saturday panicking over what's going to happen tomorrow. But let's talk
Oh,
about the future plans. We'll start the Facebook group first, and we'll see how it goes from there. Okay,
yeah,
thank you
looking
for
forward to
joining
seeing
us.
everyone.
Yeah,
Bye.
bye.